Her mother's past was a secret, until a billionaire's wife crossed the street. It was just supposed to be a delivery. Tasha Monroe had been behind the wheel since 6 o'clock a.m., weaving through the morning fog of Charleston in her dented silver delivery van, with the air conditioning stuck on high and gospel radio humming low. The route today was mostly downtown, tight alleys, brick sidewalks, and the kind of houses that still held secrets behind white shutters and jasmine fences. At 11:47 a.m., her GPS buzzed for stop number 43. Recipient, Evelyn Bordeaux, 48 Chalmers Street. The name barely registered. She parked outside a pale yellow townhouse framed with ivy and silence. There was no intercom, just an old brass knocker shaped like a lion's head. She grabbed the padded envelope from the front seat, slightly heavy, marked Personal Documents, Signature Required. Her thumb brushed the name again. Evelyn Bordeaux. And that's when it hit her. Her mother's name was Evelyn. Not Evelyn Monroe, Evelyn Bordeaux. At least, that's what was scribbled on the back of a torn letter Tasha had found when she was 12, stuffed inside a sewing kit no one used. The letter had no stamp, no address, just a date, and a name written in neat, confident cursive, to Evelyn Bordeaux. Tasha had never asked her mom about it, never dared. Her mom worked double shifts as a nurse, lived paycheck to paycheck, and treated the past like a door you don't open if you don't want to find ghosts. But now, standing on a stranger's porch with that name printed clear as day, Tasha's hands started to shake. She knocked twice. No answer. She knocked again, harder. A minute passed before the door creaked open. An elderly woman stood there, poised, elegant, dressed in linen with pearls at her throat. She looked more like a retired ambassador than someone expecting a delivery. "Yes," the woman said, voice cool but polite. Tasha blinked. I have a delivery. Requires signature." The woman took the package, scanned the label, and paused. Then she looked up. "That's not your usual uniform. You're not from Gold Post." Tasha cleared her throat. "No, ma'am. Freelance contract. I'm filling in." The woman nodded once and took the pen Tasha offered, but before signing she asked, "Did you say your name?" Tasha hesitated. Tasha Monroe." The pen froze above the paper. "Monroe," the woman repeated. Slowly, like tasting a name she hadn't heard in decades. Tasha swallowed. Her heart was racing now. The moment felt too still, too sharp. She took a breath and spoke before she could stop herself. "Did you ever know someone named Evelyn Monroe? Or just Evelyn? From King Street? Maybe 30 years ago?" Silence. The woman's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. "I think she used to go by Bordeaux," Tasha added softly. This time the package slipped from the woman's hands. Tasha caught it before it hit the floor. A long pause. Then the woman said, not to Tasha, not really to herself either, but to some point in the past, "She had a daughter." Tasha nodded. "Yes, ma'am. That's me." Tasha didn't move. Neither did the woman. The porch suddenly felt too quiet for midday Charleston, like the city was holding its breath. "Would you," the woman said, her voice thinner now, "would you like to come in?" Tasha hesitated. Everything in her said this was too strange, too fast, but curiosity had already bloomed into something she couldn't ignore. She stepped inside. The house smelled like sandalwood and lemon oil, clean, timeless. A spiral staircase curved upward to a gallery of framed portraits, oil paintings, sepia photographs, and one vivid black and white of a woman laughing under a magnolia tree. They walked into a sitting room filled with antique books and a harp that looked like no one had played it in decades. The woman gestured to a chair and sat across from her, smoothing the crease of her skirt like someone rehearsing calm. "My name," she said slowly, "is Margaret Bordeaux. Evelyn is my sister." Tasha blinked. "So, that would make you your aunt," she finished quietly. If what you say is true." Tasha nodded, suddenly unsure whether to be relieved or overwhelmed. "I haven't seen Evelyn in over 30 years, Margaret said. "Not since, well, I suppose she made her choice." "What choice?" Margaret stood, walked to a side cabinet, opened a drawer, and pulled out a faded envelope. She didn't open it, just held it gently in both hands. "I never got to read her reply," she said. "This was mine. I wrote to her when I found out about you." Tasha's breath caught. "My mom never told me she had a sister. I didn't even know Bordeaux was her name. She always said Monroe was her maiden name." "It wasn't," Margaret said, and her voice cracked just barely. "She changed it. She cut us off. Me, our father, the entire family. After she left, there were rumors that she'd gone to New York, that she was living in shelters, that she had a child out of wedlock and didn't want anything to do with our name. I didn't believe it. I waited years for a call, a letter, anything." Tasha looked down at her lap. "We moved around a lot when I was little. My mom never talked about her past, ever, not even once." Margaret nodded, her fingers curling around the envelope. "And yet, here you are." The silence returned, thick, weighted, but not hostile. Tasha leaned forward. "Can I ask something?" Margaret nodded. "Why did she leave? What happened?" Margaret looked away toward the window where sunlight spilled over the edge of a lace curtain. "It was complicated," she said finally. "Our father, your grandfather, wasn't a kind man, especially not to Evelyn. She was the wild one, the one who asked too many questions. He tried to shape her into someone she wasn't. When she turned 19, she vanished. Took nothing but a duffel bag and a jazz record. We never saw her again." Tasha blinked, feeling her throat tighten. "She told me she worked in a diner, then a hospital. Always kept busy. I think maybe she didn't want me to know what she left behind. Or who. Or maybe," Margaret said softly, "she didn't want to risk bringing you back into something she barely escaped from." The words hung there. Then Tasha reached into her bag and pulled out the only photograph she ever had of her mother as a young woman. She handed it over. Margaret took it, and her fingers trembled. "She kept that dress," she whispered. "Even when we couldn't afford lights some months, she kept that dress hung in the back of her closet. That was the summer she danced barefoot on the courthouse lawn. I never thought I'd see this again." Tasha let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. They sat in silence for several minutes, both women staring at different corners of memory. Then Margaret stood. "I don't want to push. I know this is sudden, but if you'd like to talk more, if you'd like to know where your mother came from, what your name means, I'm here." Tasha looked up. "I'm not sure I'm ready. I understand." Margaret smiled, small, wistful. "But one day, if you want to come back, the door will be open." 3 days passed before Tasha returned. She didn't call, didn't text, just showed up at the same townhouse on Chalmers Street, wearing the same hoodie she always wore when she needed courage. It still smelled like her mom's old fabric softener. Margaret opened the door before Tasha even knocked. "I was making tea," she said, voice even. "I'm not really a tea person," Tasha replied. "That's all right," Margaret smiled faintly. "I made coffee too." Inside, the house felt warmer this time, less like a museum and more like a home. A quilt lay draped over the couch now. The windows were cracked open just slightly. And on the coffee table, neatly stacked, was a shoebox full of letters. "I thought you might want to see these," Margaret said, sitting down slowly. "They're from Evelyn. Or rather, they were supposed to be. I found them in our father's attic after he passed. He never mailed them. Never told me they existed." Tasha's breath hitched. "You mean she wrote back?" Margaret nodded. "Not just once. Over a dozen times. Some were addressed to me. Some to no one." With trembling fingers, Tasha opened the box. Each letter was written in the same slanted cursive, elegant but rushed, like the words couldn't wait to escape. She picked one at random and unfolded it. "Dear Mags, I don't know if this will ever reach you. I'm somewhere between Baton Rouge and gone. I saw a poster of Miles Davis today and thought of you. How we used to sit in the back stairwell with your radio. I miss that version of us. The soft, unbroken one." Tasha stopped reading. Her eyes stung. Another letter. "I had a baby. A girl. Her name is Tasha. She has my nose and someone else's eyes. She laughs like she's never been told she shouldn't. I'm scared every day. But she's the only thing I've ever done right." Her hands began to shake. Margaret reached forward and gently placed a hand over hers. "She loved you," she whispered. "Even from a distance." Tasha blinked fast. "She never said a word. Never showed me this side of her." "She was protecting you," Margaret said. "From the pain. From him. Maybe even from me." Tasha stared at the box. "Who was my father?" Margaret didn't answer at first. Then she stood, walked over to a bookshelf, and pulled out a manila folder. "I don't know for sure," she said, placing the folder in Tasha's lap. "But your mom left clues." Inside were copies of old employment records, a faded pay stub from a luxury hotel in Baton Rouge, and, tucked in the back, a single photograph. Two people, arms slung around each other's shoulders, standing under a neon diner sign. Tasha's mother was on the right, grinning. The man beside her, tall, well-dressed, with a square jaw and a wristwatch that didn't belong in that part of town, looked vaguely familiar. "He looks like someone," Tasha murmured. Margaret nodded. "He's someone." She reached into a drawer and pulled out a clipping from a business journal. "Henry Paulson III, founder of Crescent Realty Group, to oversee redevelopment of historic neighborhoods." Tasha held the photo next to the article. Same jawline, same eyes. "But he's—" "Yes," Margaret confirmed. "A billionaire. And married at the time." The room went still. Tasha sat back. "My mother never told me. She didn't want you to grow up defined by someone else's choices." "But I was," Tasha whispered, "without even knowing it." Margaret nodded solemnly. "Now you have a choice. You can walk away from this, or you can go deeper." Tasha folded the photograph and tucked it into her hoodie pocket. "I think I need to see him," she said. "Not for money, not even for answers. Just to know what parts of me came from silence." Margaret nodded. "Then I'll help you find him." It took less than a week to find him. Crescent Realty's headquarters sat in a glass tower downtown, a monolith of steel and silence surrounded by valet parking and men in gray suits who didn't look up from their phones. Tasha stood across the street that Monday morning, coffee untouched in her hand, watching the building like it might breathe fire. Her heart beat steady but loud. She hadn't told Margaret she was coming. Hadn't told anyone. She just needed to see him. In person. Even from afar. At 9:17 a.m., a black town car pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out, opened the back door, and there he was. Henry Paulson III. Older now than in the photo, grayer at the temples, a little slower in the knees, but unmistakable. The kind of presence that made people move without being told. He walked into the building flanked by 2 assistants. Tasha didn't follow. She just stood there. Until another car pulled up, quieter, silver. From the passenger side stepped a woman in a navy suit with pearl earrings and a grace that didn't come from money, but something older. Earned. She turned, and her eyes locked on Tasha. It was less than a second, a flicker. But it was enough. The woman paused, gave the building a glance, then crossed the street, directly toward her. Tasha's spine stiffened. The woman stopped just a few feet away. Her voice was soft but carried weight. "You're Evelyn's daughter." Not a question. Tasha's throat tightened. "How did you—" "She had your eyes," the woman said. "And I've seen that necklace before." Tasha looked down. Her hand instinctively went to the small pendant hanging at her collarbone, an old silver leaf, dulled at the edges. "She used to wear it," the woman continued. "I remember, before he made her take it off." Tasha's voice came out hoarse. "You knew her?" The woman nodded. "My name is Rebecca Paulson. I'm Henry's wife." Tasha's stomach dropped. "I'm not here to cause problems," she said quickly. "I didn't know you—" "I'm not here to accuse you," Rebecca interrupted gently. "I've known about Evelyn for 30 years. The sidewalk seemed to shift under Tasha's feet. Rebecca took a breath, calm but heavy. "I didn't know the full truth. Not until I found the letter she left him. He never responded. He burned it. But he read it. And I did too." Tasha's eyes widened. "What did it say?" "She said she didn't want money. She just wanted him to know you existed, that you were growing, laughing, that you had her smile and maybe his eyes. She didn't ask for anything." Tasha felt her legs weaken. "I didn't know what to do with that," Rebecca continued. "For years I didn't know how to ask. And when Evelyn passed, I found the obituary. Quiet. No service. No one called him. But I knew. I always knew." She paused. "I came here today not to speak for him, but for her." Tasha blinked fast. "Why?" "Because her name was never a secret to me," Rebecca said softly. "And neither are you." Tasha didn't respond. She couldn't. Her breath was trapped somewhere between disbelief and fury, and something she hadn't felt since she was a little girl. The longing to be seen. "Do you want to meet him?" Rebecca asked. I don't know," Tasha whispered. "Then don't decide today." Rebecca reached into her purse and pulled out a small cream envelope. "Here. If you ever want to talk, on your terms." Tasha took it. Rebecca turned to go, but then stopped. "One more thing," she said. "He may never be ready to face what he left behind, but that doesn't mean you have to carry his silence. You were never a mistake, Tasha. You were just kept in the dark too long." She crossed the street without another word. Tasha stood still, her fingers gripping the envelope. Inside was a handwritten card. "If the time ever comes, I'll listen. Rebecca." Tasha didn't open the envelope right away. She carried it in her jacket pocket for days, through shifts, through late nights folding delivery invoices at the kitchen table, through mornings where the memory of Rebecca's voice surfaced before the sun even rose. She didn't call, she didn't write, but she did go home. Not to the apartment she rented behind the laundromat. Home. The place with the dusty bookshelf and the chipped coffee mug that still said, #1 Mom, the one her mother used to drink from on her night shifts. Evelyn had passed 5 years ago. Quietly. No hospital, no final words. Just her and Tasha and a fading breath on a rainy Tuesday. And yet somehow her presence still lived in every corner. Tasha sat cross-legged on the floor and opened the wooden trunk at the foot of the bed, the same one she was never allowed to open growing up. She used to think it held bills or insurance papers, but inside were memories. A scarf that still smelled like lavender, a cassette tape labeled Miles for Mags, and a photograph, creased but unbroken, of two young women under a campus archway, one smiling boldly, the other, Evelyn, just beginning to. Tasha stared at it for a long time. Then she opened Rebecca's envelope. Inside, a short note. I don't know what you need, but if you ever want to tell your story, not his, not mine, yours, I will help you. There was a second paper underneath, a foundation form. Rebecca had established a small storytelling grant in Evelyn's name, for women who left quietly, for daughters who ask louder. Tasha didn't cry, but her heart did something else. It unfolded. Weeks passed. Tasha didn't reach out to Henry. She didn't need to. She'd spent her life wondering if she was the secret. But she wasn't. She was the sentence no one had the courage to finish. Now, she was writing her own. At Mabel's kitchen, where it all began, Reggie passed her a small envelope after the lunch rush. No name, he said, but same handwriting as before. Tasha opened it slowly. Inside was a letter. No check, no apology, just ink on linen paper. I can't ask for forgiveness. I can't reclaim years. But I am proud of you, even from a distance. H. She stared at it for a moment, then folded it, tucked it into her apron. Later that evening, she stood behind the counter, watching the street grow quiet. Margaret had come by earlier, bringing a box of Evelyn's college journals. They'd laughed over Evelyn's doodles in the margins and the dream she once wrote in 1991. Start a bookstore cafe, call it Bitter and Bright. Tasha hadn't laughed at that part. She wrote it down. And 2 months later, she painted the words on a wooden signboard herself. Bitter and Bright. Coffee, stories, belonging. The bookstore opened on the same street where her mother used to hand out menus and bite her tongue. Now, Tasha ran it, with Margaret stocking the shelves and Reggie doing weekend jazz sets in the corner. One afternoon, Rebecca Paulson came in. No entourage, just a worn hardcover under her arm. She didn't stay long, just enough to order tea, leave a donation envelope for the Evelyn Bordeaux storytelling grant, and smile at the sign near the register. We believe in second chances, even if they start on page 47. When she left, she said one thing to Tasha. You've built something that can't be erased. And she had. Not just a shop, not just a legacy, a name, one no longer borrowed, no longer hidden, one that belonged to her, not because someone gave it, but because she claimed it. Tasha Bordeaux. A daughter of silence, now a voice.